What is up, Oklahoma fans, Sooner Nation, college football fans? Welcome into another edition of Sooner Sunday Live. We are live here on YouTube. If you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, jump over to the YouTube channel. Just help us out, and we're trying to keep on growing. We're almost to 6,300 right now. If we could get to 6,500 before the end of this football season, that would be fantastic. But yes, it was a very disappointing weekend. It's not the same week for Oklahoma fans, but we're still here on Sooner Sunday Live. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. We try to pump out as much content as humanly possible here on Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football. So just do us a quick favor. Of course, hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, just your views help us plenty enough, and we don't expect you to do any more. We're not going to stop doing what we do for those of you who just watch and join in as our normal audience, but it just helps us do a little bit more, and we're building up a community, and we want to start to do more for those members, and so we're going to start giving more out for members. We're going to have member-only extras, nothing that takes away from what we're doing here on the regular, but we're going to do extras for our members because it truly does help us keep on doing what I think all three of us here as the hosts here at Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football love to do, and it's just talk Oklahoma sports. We're Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football, Voice of the College Football Network, but we will kind of touch on, I know the Sooner Smiths, they touch on all kinds of other things, such as the softball and women's basketball, gymnastics, all that fun stuff. So make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. But becoming a member helps us do just a little bit more. And for those of you who like sports outside of just football, then we definitely have a lot planned for you if you become a member. So becoming a member is a great way to help us keep on growing and keep on growing our community here. But we're going to get into it because we have a lot to touch on. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot, because I rewatched that game twice in the span of since yesterday when the game ended. And man, there was just so many things that we as fans just drive ourselves insane for no reason at all. And I'm realizing that my hoodie strings are a little uneven. There we go. It really does drive me up a wall to watch this team, because there are certain things that we called out as fans just immediately that that the coaching staff knows. I'm not saying anything that they know way more football than I do. I'm kind of a weirdo where I really dive into stuff. You guys have seen where I do film breakdowns and stuff. I like to break down the game of football, and I have learned the game of football a lot, but I don't know as much as this coaching staff does. And for some reason, they're not making certain adjustments that just seem natural in real time to even somebody as little of a ball knower as myself. And so, it does make us question a lot of things. And so I'm going to kind of be very real this morning. I guess I keep on saying this morning. It's not a morning episode. I still drinking coffee, and yes, still black coffee. Also, another great way to support the show. Go check out our merch shop. You can check out the merch shop, vocfb.com/shop. We have all kinds of merch, mugs. I love this mug. This is my favorite go-to mug, just because it's easy for me to have here on the show. And cheers to the microphone there. But no, vocfb.com/shop. Another great way to help support the channel, support the network as a whole. We have a lot of things kind of in the works, and a lot of things that we're keep on growing on, and so very excited for all of that. But go check it out. Shirts, hats, hoodies, so much more. Mugs, tumblers, all that kind of stuff over there. But guys, I know I feel like I am kind of monotone this morning. See, I keep on saying this morning, but it's just because I've been up and going through so much throughout. And so anyways, we're going to get into it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in the live chat. All super chats will be read live on the show. I can't confirm that we're going to see everybody's chats. So anyways, would love to see all of that. So jump in the live chat. We will get to that. And you know what? I see some of you guys are in the live chat right now. So I'm going to give you guys a shout out because you guys are the early live chatters. Jackson, what is up, Jackson? He's our fellow Alabama man of the network, and like a walking college football encyclopedia at some points. But what's up, Jackson? And then Thunder OU Sooner says, how is Oklahoma going to fix penalties? Those penalties cost Oklahoma the game. We will touch on that, but I'm going to give you the shout out here for your comment anyways, just because, penalties are killing this team, no doubt. But very, very interested to see how they fix some of that, because I just don't know how you fix that. Sooner, right back at you, Stacy. She says, boomer. And then Furry Marie, haven't seen you in the chat in a while. I don't know if you ever caught that I moved over from what was my own channel and kind of stopped doing a lot of content over there. But he says, question, was Ole Miss not a better team than OU at this point in the season? I want to answer that for you, and I don't know how to. I think Oklahoma and Ole Miss, really, before this game, I think both teams are very equal in the sense that Oklahoma's offense struggles where Ole Miss's defense struggles. And so the matchup really was Oklahoma's defense against Ole Miss's offense. And I think that proved to be very evident yesterday. It was just that Oklahoma's offense struggled even more. And I think because of a lot of just miscues and a lot of, now that we're really breaking down, after I've been able to break down some of the game film and rewatch it, I think Oklahoma struggled very much so in the quarterback room where Ole Miss did not. And that wasn't any hiding. It wasn't like it wasn't like we didn't know that was going to be the case, that Trinidad Chambliss wasn't a monster. But anyways, looking forward to getting into the rest of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to click that off the screen. Volcano, I think that's another name that I also recognize from Sooner Spotlight bringing over. What's up, Volcano? A Vols fan, I'm believing. Can y'all still make the playoffs at 9-3? I think Oklahoma could make the playoffs at 9-3. If there was any team in the nation that was going to make the playoffs at 9-3, I think it would be Oklahoma, unless you had that fluke scenario of last year where Clemson made the playoffs at 9-3. We'll get to it. I don't think Oklahoma will make the playoffs even at 9-3 now. When I look at the rest of the landscape of college football, it is deep, and I think in the Big Ten is different this year than it has been in the years past. I know there's that whole rivalry. I think the Big Ten and the SEC are very equal when we talk about the top teams. But if we're going to have this debate, it's about the depth of the SEC compared to the depth of the Big Ten, and that's where the SEC just dominates. I don't care. I don't think you can change my mind. I don't think you can. You can try, and I will be open to it, but I don't think you can. And I think, obviously, you being an SEC fan, you probably agree with me there. So you're not going to try to change my mind. But I don't think Oklahoma will, because the Big Ten right now, let's say that Ohio State's only loss on the season was to Michigan. And I believe Michigan's sitting there at only 2 losses on the season. If that's the case and Michigan ends up going in and they end up having a 10-win season, I think they make the college football playoffs over Oklahoma. And then, if Oklahoma has nine wins, and then you have Indiana, who is on a tear. And I don't know, I think Indiana might be more real than we want to give them credit. It's the logo that throws us off with Indiana. And I actually grew up 7 years or so of my life in Indiana, went to a lot of Hoosier games. Loved going to the Hoosier games just because it was so easy for us to go there. It was cheap. It was like $5 to get in back then because they were so terrible and nobody cared about football there. But I'm cheering for the Hoosiers. But no, to answer your question, just because of that, because you got Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana, who I think all 4 could make the playoffs, just depending on how things shake off in the SEC. That's 4 there. In the SEC, it's just so deep. I think it's very tough. And to your point, you bring this up. If Oklahoma were to beat Tennessee and Alabama on the road, lose to maybe Missouri, yeah, I think that's the way that Oklahoma gets in. But I just realistically, I don't think Oklahoma. If Oklahoma is going to lose only one of their last 4 games, I think it's one of those on the road games. And obviously, the tough one right now is Alabama. That's the tougher team. I'm very excited. Volcano, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about Tennessee. We're going to be getting into that Tennessee previews this week, so stay tuned on the channel. I'm very excited to get into that one. I'll be there in Knoxville, and we'll see where I'm at in Knoxville in that stadium. Still up in the air on where I could be, but anyways, very excited to go to Tennessee. So if any Tennessee fans are chiming in, please let me know what I should be looking for in Knoxville, what I should visit, what I should be doing on game day, what I should check out. If there's an eatery that you think I'd have to hit up that weekend, because I hope to be there Thursday through Sunday. So let me know. I'm very excited. It may be my first time at Neyland. Very excited to get there. But let's get into it. real quick, it's the day after the game, day after the tough loss, and this one hurts. But I don't think it really hurts as much as the Texas loss, but it hurts, in very many of the same ways as the Texas loss for Oklahoma. 1 second. Excuse me. Just didn't want that to get too cold on me. But anyways, we're going to get into it because the Oklahoma Sooners, they suffered the terrible 34-26 defeat to number 8 in the nation, Ole Miss, and so you have to look at that for what that's worth. But it was in Norman, and that's what really hurts the Sooners. And when we're talking about whether the Sooners can make the playoffs at all at this point, that's really what it boils down to. You now have a neutral site loss and a home loss, and I think that really hurts the Sooners. But now drops them down to 6-2, 2-2 in the SEC. You really have to get things going here in the SEC, and I think the only way for the Sooners now to really instill any sort of hope for the future is to win out. That's the only. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to sit here and predict that would happen. Now, I know that the staff and that the players, everybody inside the building, they believe that can happen. But as a fan base, I understand we don't think that can happen. And we would hope that the everyone inside the locker room does believe that. We would hope that that's the case, even if it doesn't end up being the case. We hope that they have that gut feeling that it's going to happen. But anyways. It's going to be very tough because it was a valiant effort in the third quarter to come back. Oklahoma comes back, makes it a 1-point lead now after the 2-point conversion miss, and that was just a terrible miss. I don't think the play call was bad. It was just bad miss there on the 2-point conversion. And of course, I feel like there was just a litany of self-inflicted wounds that were so costly for the Sooners, and ultimately it derailed them from that comeback effort. And that's really what it comes down to for the Sooners in this loss. And we're going to go through some of the key moments that really lost the game, the key factors that lost the game for the Sooners. First, we'll start off with the second quarter safety. I think that was kind of the turning point that came early in this game, and the Sooners are not going to win when you have these kinds of self-inflicting wounds. You talk about that in that second quarter when Oklahoma was kind of pinned deep in its own territory. And then they have the penalty on the punt return that ends up coming back and pushing them back, I believe, inside or on their own 5-yard line. And then you have the penalty to back you up, and I think that was an illegal formation penalty that backs the offense up inside the 5-yard line down to the 2-yard line now. And then Ben Arbuckle kind of calls this slow developing outside zone play that just really doesn't work. It was for Torrey Blaylock, and I don't blame Torrey Blaylock. I think in the moment I felt like he needed to push up field a little faster. I don't think he had time to do that. He does need to in that scenario, but I also think that the tight end coming across almost messed up the block. But I think Jake Mikula had a terrible game yesterday. I will call that out. And I don't like to call out players because mainly just for the reason that I don't like calling out. I don't know. I never do like calling out players or calling out specific names specifically. But I think you are starting to get to a different day and age where I think sometimes you just have to call out who it was that you're talking about. And I don't know. I suppose in this scenario, it's just easier for me to find that. But anyways, that's you just battled back. You just stole momentum, got down there, and got the touchdown to go ahead. You get the stop on the defense, and then the offense stalls out and then gives up 2 points there, which then gives over back to the ball back over to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss up 12-10 in a crucial moment. They go down there and they end up giving what becomes a 5-point swing now because Ole Miss goes down there and is able to end up kicking a field goal. Let's see if I can get my words out this. Just keep on saying this morning. It's not morning anymore, guys. But let's see if I can get my words out. But anyways, I think that free kick, that was a big return. It ends up getting Ole Miss down the field, and again, that now gives Ole Miss the opportunity, the chance to go up, and they take it. They go up 15-10 at that point. A huge momentum swing there for Oklahoma. Kind of jumping forward into the game, I think this is probably one, and I kind of ranked these as most critical. I didn't rank them as chronological order. I ranked them as most critical in my opinion, and I think Isaiah Sategna's fourth quarter fumble was the next one up on the list. So we're talking. I think there's two more that I'm going to bring up, and this ranks at number 3 for me. I think this was another big one, and with Oklahoma, they're trailing 31-26, so it's a 5-point game, just over 7 minutes remaining, and Oklahoma had a golden opportunity, a big return. It sets them up in beautiful position, and it was really a bad punt as well. Sets them up in great position. The defense forces that punt. Sategna fields the punt, goes down there, returns it, and as he attempts to hurdle a defender, the Ole Miss a receiver, it was Trace Bruckler, who ends up forcing the fumble, and Rebels end up recovering. Immediately, I thought he was down. He's got to be down, but he's still barely up on a player before he's down and ends up turning the ball over. And so instead of Oklahoma possessing the ball at the 50-yard line with a chance to take the lead, Ole Miss now kicks a 37-yard field goal. Again, the defense standing up and doing what they have to do. And it was huge. A 37-yard field goal to push the lead up to 34-26 and basically seals the game at this point because Oklahoma has no more timeouts. They have to drive the entire distance of the field now, and you're down 8 points. So you have to get down there and score, and you have to be able to score the 2-point conversion. So it was just a horrible situation, and I think you could probably rank this higher just because of the timing of it, but I don't think I rank it as high because of other things that could have happened before it that could have really kept Oklahoma out of this situation as a whole. And that really leads us into the next one, the failed 4th down conversion. They're right before halftime. I don't know that I really go for it on 4th down here. I think Oklahoma, they're kind of facing that 4th and 2 near midfield, the second quarter. Ben Arbuckle calls a play-action pass from under center. Ole Miss snuffs it out immediately, and it was just, again, another one of these situations where you go into a formation that Oklahoma's not good at. You don't have a true tight end to rely on in this situation. And I don't understand it. The Rebels end up taking over in OU territory and capitalizing with a touchdown from that drive to end up giving them a 22-10 lead, a deficit that really proved to be insurmountable for the Oklahoma Sooners to really come back from. And I think without that, without the first half lack of offense and the first half, and there's a lot more that we can get into and we will dive into in the first half, but I think without all of without the offense performing well, and then of course crucial things that happened in the first half that really set Oklahoma behind, and then getting yourself behind 22-10 at halftime, you're now down by 2 scores. That's really what boils down to a lot of the second half stuff that didn't go Oklahoma's way, because if you're not down by 2 scores, even if you're just down by 1 score, you come out and you get the ball in the second half and you can make something of it, and you can come out here and instead of having to score 2 times in order to get back into the lead, there's so much in that first half, that the safety, and I think that, of course, then going down to that fourth quarter in that first half, those are 2 things that absolutely killed Oklahoma, because that then gives you 9 points that you gave to Ole Miss rather than being able to do something for yourself. And then critical penalties at inopportune times. I think that's the next one that we have to point out here for the Sooners. I think those critical penalties that Oklahoma had, talking about the one that backed them up. So starting off, Oklahoma was flagged 8 times for 52 yards, with many coming at critical junctures of the game, critical moments where it just really killed Oklahoma. I think first one of them that I have to mention is an offsides penalty by R. Mason Thomas that negated what would have been a sack or tackle for loss. I'm not really sure how you consider that. I think it would have been a sack just because it was a pass play and he did go down. So it would have been credited to Oklahoma as a sack, and ends up forcing a 4th down on that 3rd and 15 in the second quarter. But instead it was, ends up going back, and then, of course, the holding call on a punt return pins Oklahoma inside their own 5-yard line, which we already talked about, setting up that sequence that led to a safety. And another one is also the roughing the passer. I think it was extremely questionable. Actually, no, I don't even think that. I think it was extremely terrible. I think it was a horrible call. Should not have been roughing the passer, but that roughing the passer ends up giving Ole Miss a drive that results in a field goal, I believe, at that point. And so there was just a lot of things in that first half I think you look at. I think the first half was more crucial for Oklahoma than the second half. And the first half, the thing is, they didn't even look as bad as they did against Texas, per se. I don't think they looked even that bad, and they still just had a really bad half that ruined the second half of the game for them. So ultimately, I think that's what it boils down to. I think with all of the factors that ended up losing the game, those to me seem to be the biggest one for the Sooners against Ole Miss. All right, I will jump back over to the chat really quick for you guys. He says, "I live in Minnesota, man." Is volcano? Is that not voles? Is that not what that is? My bad. I thought maybe that was a voles reference. But anyways, Showtime says our defense is average against good teams. I can't really argue that because that was definitely the best offense. I can't argue against it because that was the best offense that Oklahoma had faced, and they definitely did look pretty average. Anyways. Kind of looking down through. Jimmy's in the chat. What's up, Jimmy? He says, Oklahoma has been penalized too many times under BV. Yeah, and there's a lot of those penalties, like the ones I was bringing up, that I think that are just, most of the time when Oklahoma's penalized, it's just bonehead mistakes. You're getting yourself into the wrong position and at the wrong time. There's a lot of things that it does come down to coaching and execution on top of that as well. But anyways, we'll go ahead and move on here. And talking about the non-existent run game that Oklahoma had, we'll talk about a lot of the things that Oklahoma just didn't do well all game, and it was the non-existent run game as a whole. You would think coming after that coming off of that South Carolina win, where you went on the road and you were able to run the ball really well, that something would have adjusted in your play calling. Something would have adjusted with how you come out of this game. But instead, the Sooners kind of managed really nothing in the first half. I think it was only 16 rushing yards on 9 carries in the first half. 9 carries in the first half. That was all you got from the Sooners. After you just proved that you have 2 good backs on the road at South Carolina, you only ran the ball 2 times. And this was against Ole Miss's defense, who I think was 98th, 99th in the nation in run defense, which is worse than South Carolina's run defense statistically. It was an abysmal performance, and it put enormous pressure on John Mateer to do a lot, which I think bleeds into the second half. And we'll talk more about John Mateer because I think, yesterday I was trying to defend John Mateer a little bit, but I think after rewatching it, there was so much that really does fall on his shoulders. And I do still stand by the point. I think that the lack of running, and especially in the first half, put so much pressure on John Mateer. And in the fourth quarter, especially, it puts so much pressure on him to say, we need you to go out there and win the game for us. Now, you should be able to rely on a preseason Heisman favorite and even a first 4-game Heisman favorite. You should be able to rely on him in that. But first, coming off of the injury, probably a little too soon. And then coming in, I don't think the injury necessarily bothers him anymore, but he's not acting the same. He is not the same quarterback mentally as he was before that injury. And I think that's evident to just about everyone. So I don't think John Mateer sucks or anything like that. I just could see plenty of scenarios where Ben Arbuckle relied on John Mateer to win the game rather than going to what was working, and that was the run game. And when you start to go to John Mateer when you shouldn't and start to rely on him when you really don't need to, that puts way too much pressure on him. And you could tell that the pressure was too much for him in this moment. And it was too much for him in Texas too. And so I think you look at how John Mateer performed, and I will defend him to the extent of, I think he was being relied on too much and in times where he shouldn't have been relied upon. But he still didn't perform well. He still had a very bad game, and I think specifically in that second half, did not have a good game. I think in the first half, you can also pull out several areas where there was open receivers that he just wasn't seeing. He has not seen the ball well here in these last 3 games, and he's now 1-2 in these last 3 games. So it really does go to show, and I think a big part of that is you have to be able to rely on the run game and get it going. It was completely non-existent in the first half, completely non-existent. Even after Xavier Robinson's explosive performance in the third quarter, Oklahoma still didn't do anything. They still didn't use that. They didn't utilize that to their advantage in the fourth quarter when they really could have used it. When you go up and you're still only a touchdown behind at this point, you're only 1 score behind, and you still are trying to pass the ball so much rather than rely on that run game. And guess what? The run game works out in your favor, because then you take the time of possession. You take control of the game. You spread it out and cause that defense to now focus on the run to open up the pass game for John Mateer. So yes, John Mateer had a bad game, and I'm not going to defend that anymore than I think I tried to yesterday. He had a bad game, and there was a lot of things that he needs to fix, that he needs to improve on. But a lot of that does fall back on the offensive coordinator. With Ben Arbuckle and whoever else is helping with these game the game decisions, the in-game decisions and play calling, it needs to be fixed, because it was a bad performance in that regard. The fact that you get the run game going and you finally get it looking like it needs to look, and you don't utilize that. You don't use it, and especially when you needed it the most. And then when you are trying to go to the pass game and force the pass game when it just absolutely isn't working, you then put more pressure on your quarterback than is necessary. So the non-existent running, I think that ranks number 1 on my list. I think just not utilizing the run game right away, right out of the bat, that has to change. You have to get it going first and foremost. That is the most important thing about this Oklahoma Sooners offense. Going on to third and fourth downs, I think third and fourth down failures is really what hurt the game, this game as a whole, all game. Oklahoma just converted 4-14. That's 28.6% on third down attempts. And on fourth down attempts, they were 1 of 3. It was just totally opposite from what they have been all season. And then it was also a huge opposite of what Ole Miss was able to do, which I mentioned this during the game. Where Ole Miss was really good on third downs specifically. And then even their fourth downs, they were able to do some damage. And it was against a really good, one of the best in the nation, third down defenses. That Ole Miss went 9 of 21 on third downs and 2 for 3 on fourth downs. I know that Brent Venables kind of mentioned this and kind of acknowledged it in the postgame and talked about how it was going to come down to third and fourth downs on offense and defense. And it really does go on both offense and defense, because the defense was not able to get off the field, whether it was penalties or whether it was just key critical mistakes, leaving a guy wide open. And there were even times where it looked like they saw the motion that ended up being the guy that gets the play. I think there was one where their tight end, I believe it was Wright, that comes across the field. He comes across on a motion, and I don't remember who it was on defense, but he ends up picking it up and seeing the motion and falls out with him. And the quarterback, Chambliss, turns right to him and passes the ball to him. In that entire moment, there wasn't any hesitation for them to go there to that man in motion. And the defenders don't swarm to the ball at all. So, there was critical times like that where you have to be able to sniff that out. You have to be able to get there. You have to be able to recognize the play, which is what this defense does so well. And so it's just so dumbfounding to see that the defense was performing so terribly in moments where I think they have shown to be very good throughout the rest of the season. And so you have to be able to get off the field on third downs, stop them on fourth downs, and this defense was not able to. And to be able to get yourself into manageable third down positions is extremely important for this offense. And they were in third down and long much of this game. Many of their third downs, I felt like, and I don't have the numbers up in front of me to show me exactly how many third down and longs they had, but they were behind the sticks way too much on offense. Now going over to kind of a defensive breakdown and seeing what the defense did there, I think it felt like they broke down, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit already there with the third and fourth downs, but it felt like they were breaking down against this balanced attack. Like Ole Miss was able to find weaknesses, and credit to Lane Kiffin. He is truly a mastermind at this and adjustments, mid-game adjustments. That is what he does best. But Oklahoma's defense, which entered this game number 1 nationally in total defense and number 2 in scoring defense, this defense had only allowed, I think it was 23 points all season long in the first half combined. And they allowed almost that much at 22 points against Ole Miss. They allowed 9.4 points per game before this game. Hadn't allowed a single opponent over 20 points, and I felt confident outside, and I mentioned that, I think outside of Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss is an offense that could light it up and put 20 points up on Oklahoma's defense. Now I kind of question maybe Tennessee, maybe even Alabama. I don't think Missouri, without their starting quarterback, or even LSU, will be able to do that against Oklahoma. But that's really scary to see the defense just break down when there's a good balanced attack coming at them. I think so. They surrendered 431 total yards to the Rebels, most allowed all season. Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss threw for 315 total yards, rushed for 53 more on his own. And he was constantly able to just extend plays with his legs, whether it was getting downfield and making something out of his legs, or just being able to extend them in the backfield and find open receivers. It felt like the Sooners defense just were able to cover for extended periods, but they broke that coverage when he was able to extend it. They allowed guys behind him several times, and there were several times where that little pop pass that they tried should have worked, and they had a man wide open, and Oklahoma got extremely lucky, and they celebrated it as if it was all them. Yeah, the pressure caused the errant throw, but it was not anything that this defense did. So they got lucky a few times. But, the Rebels, they scored on their first 2 possessions, really controlled the ball for really that entire first half. They had close to 19 minutes in the first half alone of time of possession. So, it was crazy to see that Ole Miss just really exposed some weaknesses in this defense which worries me for this Oklahoma team, because now other teams are going to see how Ole Miss beat Oklahoma and try to do the same thing, or at least try to do something similar. But moving on, the offensive inconsistency, which has been a thing for Oklahoma fans to look at for really the last 2 seasons, but especially this year, where it just seems like things go so well. And this game especially just felt like things would go well and things would work out in your favor and then just fall apart, and you would go away from it. Completely away from it. It felt like when things were going well that Oklahoma didn't want to keep on going with those good things. After Isaiah Satania's 76-yard touchdown reception, it tied the game at 10-10 in the second quarter. Oklahoma, their offense managed just 10 yards over the next 5 drives. Quarterback John Mateer, he completed just 6 of 18 passes in the second half after starting strong. He was 10 for 11 at one point, ended 11 for 14 in the first half. Over 70% in the first half, felt really good about his performance. They were just a few plays away and maybe just a few connections away from being in this game. And I felt okay after the first half that, hey, this defense is going to respond. And they did in the second half, but then the offense, even when they responded, didn't keep it to it. They were inconsistent constantly. John Mateer was definitely part of that, but they failed to sustain drives. They failed to put up the extra pressure on Ole Miss when they could have. And even when Ole Miss gave them an opportunity down in their own plus territory, they couldn't capitalize on it several times. The one particularly when Ole Miss failed the fourth down conversion and fumbles the ball backwards to give Oklahoma beautiful position. What was it? I believe probably a penalty there too. I believe there was a holding call, if I'm not mistaken, that backs them up, and then they have to settle for a field goal on that. You have to be able to score touchdowns, especially in games like this. But it just felt like it put all kinds of extra pressure on the defense where it was totally unnecessary, which was already being gouged by Ole Miss's up-tempo attack. They were really good at speeding up to the ball and getting things off on this defense. And even when the defense was performing well, and even when the defense was finally getting their feet underneath them, it just felt like the offense didn't do anything to help them out. And so that was another crucial thing in this game to look at. Last one here for things that I felt like Oklahoma didn't do well all game, and it was just questionable play calling. Very questionable, because beyond the safety, Ben Arbuckle's play calling, it drew a lot of scrutiny, throughout specifically that game. And I understand it. I did feel like there was a lot of good play calling here and there. There were crucial moments that I felt like the play call was wrong, but overall, I didn't think the play calling was atrocious. Outside of just the fact, you take Xavier Robinson, 12.1 yards per carry, scoring 2 touchdowns, both of those touchdowns coming off of back-to-back drives to put Oklahoma in the lead in the third quarter. He received only 9 total touches. Meanwhile, Mateer, I know he got the ball 13 times for only 17 yards. Not all of those were designed runs, and I get that, but there were a lot of designed run plays for John Mateer that just were not working, and they weren't going to work. It was partially John Mateer not really confident in his running ability, and it was also just this offensive line struggling, which has been the case all season long. Even on a crucial 3rd down and 10 in the fourth quarter, Isaiah Sategna had 131 yards and a touchdown was somehow sidelined, for a failed jump ball. Anyways, it was just many times that one in the fourth quarter. When you come down, I think it was the fourth quarter that I'm thinking of, 4th down, where I believe it was Isaiah Sategna is down low for the first down easily. And instead, you throw it to Giovanni Gibson, who was contested. Just take your first down. Or if you look over to the other side of the field on that one, you got Xavier Robinson in the flat with nobody going out there to cover him. There's a possibility that he takes that to the house and ends up tying the game up for you, or at least giving you a chance to tie up the game. But it just felt like there was a lot of bad play calling, but I think it also falls on John Mateer. For example, the just miscues, not finding the right player, not finding your open man, one that is not covered at all, and then to throw a jump ball at times. And I'm trying to remember, I put that down in my notes, where there's a moment, 3rd down and 10, Isaiah Sategna is wide open on the sideline. I'm having a hard time now drawing that one in my head, but I do know that was one where he ends up throwing it up to a jump ball to Deion Burks, who's 5'9", and Deion Burks is a tough guy, but he's 5'9". Why are we throwing up jump balls to one of our shortest targets out there? Just doesn't make sense. So things that Oklahoma just didn't do well all game, man, I feel like we could have made a longer list, but we'll stop there. All right, jumping back over to the chat real quick, just to see where we're at here. See if there's anything else. John Mateer was off yesterday. Is he still not 100%? I think mentally he's not 100%. I don't know. I really don't. He has to be 100%, at least as 100% as you can get health-wise, I feel like, at this point. And if he's not, it's because they put him back in to work too soon. Anyways, going over to Chris, he has a good comment here. He says, Mateer just doesn't seem ready. I would really like to be a run-first offense and let Hawkins do whatever he's going to do, shut Mateer down with whatever injuries he's dealing with. Yeah, and I think the main thing is they're just trying to focus too much on the future, not for just their team, but they're also trying to look into the future for their guys. There are certain guys that they're holding back and suggesting for them to redshirt rather than burn that up. And Hawkins is one of them. I agree with you. I would like to see what this team could do. Just going run first. I don't think you have to put Hawkins in. I think it has to be a run first team. And it's clear that if you use Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson, they're going to be your workhorses and they're going to do what it takes. Jay Jones says, I think LSU's only team left on our schedule that we might beat. So 7-5, I think, gets Brent Venables fired. Yeah, I think the way that this season has gone, 7-5 is probably the end of the tenure. I'm not going to talk too much about firing Brent Venables. I just don't think it's that time yet, but I do agree with you. I think if that were the scenario, we're probably talking really hot seat at the very least, as if it can't really get too much hotter. Believe says, why does Mateer look like he has concrete in his feet and unsure in his running? Don't tell me he looks slow because of better competition. Ole Miss is not an elite defense. No, and it's not that. It's I don't know if it's an injury, which I see Jimmy alluded to. I don't know if it's an injury or anything like that. It does feel that way, but it's so when you have an injury and you go back from that injury too soon, there's a lot of things that go through your head. And I think you saw that. I'm trying to remember who it was. Somebody came back from injury here just recently. It was Giovanni Gibson. So Giovanni Gibson, you could tell like he's a good example of what it is. So you come back from injury and you just aren't doing certain things full. And I felt like Giovanni Gibson wasn't really making breaks and doing everything he could, what I think he's capable of at one point. And then he makes the incredible 5-yard catch while getting hit and ends up kind of relieving that pressure from him. But sometimes there's that injury still lingering in the back of your head. That's what it feels like to me, that the injury's still lingering there and John Mateer just isn't back mentally. I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't know how to fix that either. Thunder OU Sooner says, I think John Mateer is not 100% in his throwing motion. That feels very, very accurate. He's not getting the deep balls right. Sorry, mouse went off of it there. Let's see, but he is dink and dunking when he's throwing into wide receivers. Yeah, and I think again, I don't even really have too much concern with when he throws it to his receivers. Most of the time, he's pretty on. He's pretty on point. There was a few right there on the sideline where he got one to Deion Burks, I believe. He dropped that one to Isaiah Satania, and when he's just sitting back there and not thinking about everything else going on around him, I feel like he does really well. But there's times when he's looking at the pressure too much rather than keeping his eyes downfield and just trying to deliver the ball. He also doesn't have as quick of a release anymore. When you look back at like that Michigan game, for example, or even the Auburn game, there were times where it was like, how on earth did they not get a hand on that ball or get to Mateer before he released it? And it's just because the release is so fast. It's not fast anymore. He's not zipping it out of his hands the way that he used to. Jacob says, I would imagine Mateer is not 100%. He just had his thumb screwed together a couple weeks ago. It's got to be extremely painful. Either way, he's clearly having issues. Yeah, or they're numbing it, he says. But yeah, I don't know for sure. I really don't know too much. But anyways, Bevo's in the chat. He says, Texas showed y'all how to beat a Mississippi team. Yeah, you got to beat a Mississippi team by dragging it out to overtime, coming back from 17. Hey, hats off to Texas because it doesn't, I mean, at the end of the day, can you really, I don't think you can make fun of Texas because they're winning games, right? If you're an Oklahoma fan, you can't make fun of them. They're winning games. You got the same record and they're winning games right now and finding a way to win them. Yeah, it's against inferior opponents, but Oklahoma's not winning any of them right now. So now hats off to Texas because yeah, they won yesterday. It was very lucky games for Oklahoma or for Texas, but regardless, they're finding a way to get past it. Let's move on here. Talking about what Oklahoma needs to improve on, and again, this is a list that could have been much larger than what I ended up making it out to be just for time's sake. But first, starting off with just eliminating the self-inflicted wounds. I think cleaning up penalties, and particularly those that are keeping back big plays or extending opponents' drives. That's what we've seen nonstop. It feels like in third downs and even fourth downs, Oklahoma committing penalties getting called on Oklahoma. That's some of the big ones, or just not picking up. Yeah, I think that a lot of the self-inflicted wounds are just not picking up what you're supposed to pick up, doing your job on a crucial play. I think you've seen that from running backs. I think you've seen that from tight ends, where they're not picking up a block where they really need to, or they're not in position when they need to. I think you've seen that from the offensive line as well. Self-inflicted wounds also including John Mateer not seeing a wide open receiver that he needs to go to just to get the first down and extend your drive. But anyways, self-inflicted wounds with 8 accepted penalties against Ole Miss. Oklahoma, it's kind of been a reoccurring problem here this entire season with discipline. It has plagued them all season. It's put them into bad situations all season. But anyways, self-inflicted wounds have to end for the Sooners. And they also have to establish the run game early. We talked about this already a little bit, but Oklahoma can't afford to keep on abandoning the run game, especially against these SEC opponents, against SEC defenses, and especially even on top of that, against opponents that you know that they don't have a great rushing defense. Against a 90-something ranked Ole Miss defense in the run game, you just never got it going until the third quarter. And then on top of that, you went away from it. But you've got to get that going early. Xavier Robinson ends up exploding for 109 yards on just 9 carries, and the coaching staff needs to commit to that. They need to commit to establishing the ground game and getting him going in the first quarter. Finding a way to get him 50 yards in the first quarter, the way that Torrey Blaylock did against South Carolina in the first drive. That's what you have to commit to. And Oklahoma is just refusing to do so. Absolutely refusing to do that. You have to establish the ground game early rather than waiting until desperation sets in and getting guys like Robinson going. Robinson deserved more than just 9 carries in this game. And even Venables admitted that post-game. Getting the run game going is not as crucial as getting it going early. That's why Oklahoma was able to control and dominate that game against South Carolina, because they didn't just wait until desperation kicked in to get the run game going. Third down execution has to be much better. And again, this goes on both sides. It has to be better and improve from, it's 28.6 third down conversion rate against Ole Miss, and then preventing their opponents to complete their third downs at a high clip as well. When you look at those 2 losses against Texas and against Ole Miss, both of them were able to complete their third downs at a higher clip. And so you've got to do better there. Third down conversions are going to own and run and control these games, especially when they're big like they were against Ole Miss. You've got to do better on third downs. Better play calling. I think that's the obvious ones. When you're in passing situations, creating more creativity in short yard scenarios, getting into third and short rather than third and long. How many times did you see Oklahoma at 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15? It just felt like constantly putting yourselves behind the sticks. You've got to find a way. Earlier downs, I suppose you can also say that. Get yourselves into the earlier downs, being able to do a little bit more. And making third downs easier, but converting the third downs, that's what really needs to improve for Oklahoma. Then you go on to just overall defensive adjustments, and I think even especially against the mobile quarterbacks, because I think Lenore Sellers was able to do some of this against Oklahoma, but Chambliss was just dangerous in a different way than Lenore Sellers, and I think that proved to be the case yesterday. But his ability to kind of extend plays and just really expose Oklahoma's defense and expose a lot of the weaknesses there, it forced a lot of situations where Oklahoma was just not able to do anything, and he was able to extend drives on his own. How many times did he take off for a big run on third down whenever they needed it the most? How many times was he able to just get out of the pocket, get away from a sack, and throw the ball downfield? How many times was he able to just look across and find a wide open guy down deep? There was just so much where you have to have more discipline here if you're Oklahoma, and being consistent and being able to adapt and adjust against offenses, especially when you're going against tough offenses like this. I think you're going to find a similar offense in Tennessee. Joey Aguilar, I think he's going to be a tough matchup for Oklahoma. And then also for Alabama. Drawing a blank there on the rest of the schedule. 2 offenses that have the capability of doing the same thing. Oklahoma is going to face more mobile quarterbacks in the remainder of their schedule, and being able to contain them from scrambling and being able to maintain gap discipline. That's really important for Oklahoma. But anyways, another one is just game management, time management, and it's specifically in the extremely crucial moments like that 4th down or like the fourth quarter. They're at the end of the fourth quarter. Uh, if Oklahoma runs the ball more in the fourth quarter too, are they able to chew up more of that clock to keep the lead rather than giving that ball back over? There's so much that goes into that. You've got to find ways to manage the game better, and I think a big part of that is time of possession, being able to run the ball consistently, and just making better coaching decisions from the safety call, play call to the failed fourth down attempt. You need significant improvement here. Oklahoma can't afford to gift their opponents points or even just squandered prime scoring opportunities against this gauntlet of a schedule. They can't afford to give away third down penalties and give their opponents another chance to extend their drive. That's been what has been killing Oklahoma against Ole Miss and really in both of their losses against Texas as well. But it's going to be a lot for Oklahoma. Looking ahead, go at Tennessee, you got to bye, then at Bama, Missouri, and LSU. Missouri and LSU are looking a little bit more achievable now that those two teams are kind of squandering their opportunities in a lot of the same ways. I think Oklahoma has a chance to close it out at home, but those two road games, that's really what it comes down to. I think there's definitely a scenario where I see Oklahoma finding a way to win one of those road games and the two at home, and finishing this game with 9-3, where we look back and say, hey, at the beginning of the season, we just wanted to see improvement, and we saw it. We saw the improvement. That's the way that you come away from this season and feel good about it. If you end 8-4, 7-5, I think fans look back to the season are feeling very disappointed. I think for myself, 8-4 just kind of felt like, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I don't want it. I don't want that. I want to see 10, 11 wins, 12 wins if you can, but I'm not going to really expect that. 10, 11 wins is what you expect at Oklahoma. And I don't think there's any more. I don't think you look at Oklahoma and just feel good about a 9-3 or an 8-4 season. You just don't, because this is Oklahoma. I think Ari said it really well. I think it wasn't Ari, it was Andy Staples. He said it really well on the Andy and Ari show. I believe it is Ari and Andy and Ari show on Three Guys. But I think Andy said it really well when he said, "This is Oklahoma. You expect to win here. You don't just say, hey, well, we performed well. This is a tough team, so at least we did good." That's not what you expect at Oklahoma. This brand means so much more than I think a lot of even fans are remembering. You're not okay with a 9-3 season. You're not okay with an 8-4 season. You're really disappointed with a 10-2 season, and if that 10-2 season is losing to your arch nemesis in Texas, that's what Oklahoma, the brand of Oklahoma, means. That's what Oklahoma, that OU, that's what that means. Looking ahead, though, let's look forward, because Oklahoma still faces kind of a brutal stretch. Regardless of how you see those last two teams, it's still a brutal stretch with at Tennessee, at Bama, and the path for 8-4 even seems pretty difficult at this point. But it's really going to determine their postseason fate, and also just going forward into the future, because their playoff hopes, which stood at 24% entering in to the Ole Miss, I think they've plummeted to around 5% after that loss, if I remember that correctly. So it would have been up to like 40-something% if they would have won. But anyways, you got at Tennessee, the Volunteers, who were 6-2, 3-2 in SEC play. They just whooped up on Kentucky pretty well yesterday behind their quarterback, Joey Aguilar, who had close to 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. It's an explosive offense. It's an offense that will do okay there. I mean, they're averaging around that 50-point mark, and when they score that many, when they score 50 points or more, they're 17-0 under Josh Heupel in those games. I don't think they're going to score that much against Oklahoma. I think they have a chance to scoring around that 35-point mark. I don't think they get to 40, but this defense has to show a lot more than what they showed yesterday. More consistency, more of what they showed in the second half, really, because I think you have to be pretty happy with how Oklahoma's defense performed in the second half and how they responded. Personally, I feel that way. But anyways, Volunteers, they had 3 receivers eclipse 100 yards against Kentucky. It really showcases that firepower that they have. That's what I see. And they could really exploit Oklahoma's secondary the way that we saw Ole Miss do at times in the first half. So playing in Neyland Stadium at night, that's what I think is going to be incredible. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to be there. I can't wait to experience that, and experiencing Neyland my first time at night. First time ever at Neyland, but experiencing it at night is awesome. But it's going to be very hostile. A very hostile environment for Oklahoma to play in. We're gonna tell a lot about this team and how they respond to Tennessee. It's going to be a very tough matchup, and at this point, I'm not really predicting anything great for Oklahoma. But then you have a bye week. You have at Alabama. Still don't know the time frame there yet. But then you take on Missouri, who should be a win for Oklahoma, and LSU as well. Both those teams right now, even the way that they performed against Ole Miss, I think Oklahoma should beat Missouri and LSU at home. I think they should. Am I confident that they will? I don't know. But the bottom line is Oklahoma's loss to Ole Miss. It was really defined by the execution failures more than anything. It wasn't a talent deficit. That's what gives me hope, and hopefully some of you hope, is that, hey, we've got the talent here. What are we doing with that talent? Now that just goes into and bleeds into a lot of what the fans are saying, is that, okay, well, if it's not a talent gap, then what is it? It's obviously the coaching. It's obviously the execution there. You've got to use. We've already kind of gone through a lot of that. You've got to fix the mistakes that were evident in this game. You can't have these costly mistakes like the safety, the ill-timed fumble, bad execution on third down, questionable play calling, and ultimately all of that doomed a comeback effort. And you can't get yourself in the situation where you have to come back by 2 scores either. That's not how you win in the SEC. That's not how you win big games. But to salvage this season and potentially reach 8 wins, I mean, 8 wins is not what you hope for, but to win 9 wins it would feel like, hey, you salvaged something for the rest of the season. You've put a lot of reality onto the remaining of this schedule, which includes 4 consecutive currently ranked opponents, probably not in LSU, maybe not in Missouri by that point. I don't know for sure. But Venables said something that really stood out to me in his press conference yesterday, and he said, we didn't coach them good enough, and we didn't play good enough situationally. That says a lot. And the thing that I like about Brent Venables is that he says that stuff to attack himself. He says, it's on us. We didn't do it. It's the coaching staff did something wrong today. But it's how you make that different. Are you going to do something different next week? That's really what it comes down to for the Oklahoma Sooners. They showed a lot of fight. They showed a lot of resilience coming down from that 22-10 deficit. But in the end, it's an unforgiving SEC schedule. The SEC is unforgiving in every single game. Moral victories don't matter. And as an Oklahoma fan base, you're kind of tired of excuses, and you're tired of moral victories. You want to see the wins stack up. That's what Oklahoma wants to see. So, Oklahoma needs to translate that fight into a cleaner execution from the beginning. They need to see better coaching decisions, sustained excellence from both sides of the ball, and again, going back to those third downs. Otherwise, what started as a promising 6-1 campaign is kind of starting to spiral. And you really hope that it doesn't end up spiraling down to a disappointing finish that leaves this program kind of on the outside looking in at the postseason. But ultimately, Oklahoma fans really want to see four wins to close out this season. We'll see. We'll see. I think 3 wins at least makes you feel a little bit better moving forward for the future. Let's jump down here into the chat. All right. Again, super chats will be read live on the show. That's the easiest way to get your chat put up on the screen and for us to read on the show. It looks like a lot of banter with Bevo here. Believe says, I blame that QB coaching too. It's not all Mateer, and play calling was terrible. Yeah, I don't think it was all Mateer. I think Mateer played a big part of it when But there were times, that's where it does come down, where it's really hard to make your distinction. There were times where I felt like the play calling obviously opened something up, and even though the play calling opened something up, Mateer didn't perform well, didn't close that out. So I think that's really crucial. Sooners to win. What's up? He says, best offensive coordinator on staff is an analyst. You're not wrong. You're very right there. I just realized I still have a little splash of coffee on my cheek. It did splash at me when I put it back down. But yeah, that's not totally wrong. You've got to find a way to get Kevin Wilson more involved, maybe. Maybe that's the way. Maybe he needs to be more of a mentor to Ben Arbuckle. I'm not mad at Ben Arbuckle, and I think he has a lot of room to grow, but I'm also happy with what I see from him compared to what you saw last season. And I don't think that's anyone that would argue with that is very crazy and out of their mind. Thunder OU Sooner says, Oklahoma went away from the run game in the fourth quarter. What was working? Why did they go away from the run game? I don't know why they went away from the run game in the first quarter, carrying over from the South Carolina win. What are you doing there? I think you have to get it started. You have to start the game there. I see Jacob ended up guessing it. It was Kevin Wilson. Yes. And bingo there from Sooners to win. MWG says, Venables doesn't have the guts to tell Mateer he isn't healthy enough to play. Answer me this. If Oklahoma just allows John Mateer to sit out in that Texas game, and Oklahoma still loses the Texas game without John Mateer, I'm going to say that. I think the team as a whole just didn't show up. Then if that's the case, and John Mateer has more time to get healthy, does he perform better now? I tend to believe so, but again, it's a lot of what ifs. I don't know, but I tend to believe so. Anyways, let's go here. What's up, Bishop? I haven't seen you in the chat in a while, man. It's good to see you back. Bishop, big salute back to you. Good to see you in the chat, my man. Let's see here. MWG, again, bingo. Sorry, Sooners to win says, MWG, again, bingo. He would have done it in Dallas, if so. I mean, it's hard for me to say that it's hard for me to say that John Mateer would be performing better now, or that Oklahoma would be in a better position if they didn't have John Mateer playing in at least one of those two games, South Carolina and Texas. I don't know. I think a lot of it's hindsight. He definitely didn't perform well against Texas. I can 100% agree that I think Oklahoma might have been in a better situation against Texas if he didn't play him. If he didn't play him there. Anyways, you do have to hold him out in that Texas game, I think, regardless of how he says he feels and everything else that's going there. I just, man, I don't know. Going back to Sooners to win, he says, if they lose the next two, not confident in any game but LSU, that's just because we'll play on senior night. I'm not. If they lose both of the games on the road, I don't feel confident in either of those last two. Missouri does go without their go without their starting quarterback, so I feel pretty confident about that one. I don't feel as confident about LSU as I do Missouri, especially because of that factor. So, anyways, Bevo, Oklahoma has the same record as Texas, by the way. I mean, Oklahoma would have given anything to just go on the road to Kentucky and Mississippi State back to back. I would say Mississippi State is as tough as South Carolina. I'm not crazy to think that. No, I usually just ignore it. Bevo is a good little heckler in the chat, and Bevo, I always appreciate you jumping on here, man. Jumping on here and giving us a hard time. We deserve it right now, you know. And you know what? I don't know. I will say this: I find it really weird for Oklahoma fans or any fan base. You know, we have a lot of Ole Miss people coming in and jumping in the chat, and I don't mind it. I encourage it. It helps us, so I'm not going to turn anybody away. But like, just the mentality to go over to another team's, another team's coverages, whatever podcasts and YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff, social media pages, just to troll them after they lost, is just a weird mentality to me. For Texas fans, I get it. For Texas, Oklahoma, I get it. So I'm not criticizing Bevo, but for others, that just seems really weird to me. Lebby has the most improved team in the SEC, in my opinion. Yeah, but they still haven't won an SEC game. So, and you know what? Mississippi State lost last night for the same reasons why Oklahoma lost a few when Jeff Lebby was the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma. Not being able to sustain drives late, not being able to just be consistent and just close out. And I think running the ball and killing some of that clock would have been very crucial for him last night. But Jacob, I understand. That's why I'm not giving Bevo a hard time, because I understand between Oklahoma, Texas, or your rivals, your specific rivals. And I guess for Ole Miss, they're supposed to be a new rival now. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way. Thunder OU Sooner does say Vanderbilt, the most improved team in the SEC. They're winning games. Vanderbilt's a scary team right now too. So, gosh, I don't know. Vanderbilt comes to Austin, right, Bevo? So that'll be a good test for Texas. You get a break being at home, a little bit of a break being at home, but that's a tough team. So win that one, and then you still got Georgia in Georgia. So it's going to be tough for Oklahoma or Texas to finish out with 8 wins. I think it's kind of like where their ceiling feels like right now. So Vandy was good last season. Well, but Vandy was still only a 6-win team last season, right? I don't know. Just saying that. Stacy, I'm not rooting for Vandy. I'm not rooting for them. They have turned it around, but I don't know. There's just something about Vandy. It's like they're the little brother that finally got invited to the big boy table, and they just think that they can just talk trash on everybody, and it's just weird. I also didn't like Vandy because of I've been doing baseball coverage and all that too. So Vandy's good at baseball, but they're good at 2 things. Really good at 2 things: mathematics and baseball. This year they're really good at football, so you got to add in a third thing. They are a good team. They are a scary team. But anyways, everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I don't know what our likes are sitting at. I don't have that pulled up right now, but I want to see it soaring through the roof. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, jump over to YouTube just to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. I'm pretty sure this cup of coffee alone, and I made it myself, costs close to that. So you can get it for as low as $2.99 a month, lower than a cup of coffee. So become a member today to support the channel here. We're giving live shows on Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and post-game Saturdays. Win or lose, we're always here on the channel. We appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. You can visit our merch shop at vocfb.com/shop. That supports the channel and the network so much. So again, go check that out. Oklahoma VOCFB merch at vocfb.com/shop. Otherwise, you can become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. That is a great way. And we are going to start to give back to our members because we got members kind of growing. The membership is growing. So we appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, for supporting the channel, for supporting the show. We'll see you next time. Make sure to tune in tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Sooner Smiths with Chad and Tierney. Tuesday with myself for Oklahoma Sooners Live. Thursday, hopefully I'll be off the road by then. I don't know. We'll see if we can make it for Thursday. We'll have something up this week, plenty of something up this week. But appreciate everybody so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next